So what does the dyslexic experience feel like? Of those that raise their hands, we certainly know, but I'll illuminate it for the rest of you. I ask you to kind of take a stroll back to that sepia-toned images of your 7, 8, 9-year-old years, right? Where school was this montage of recess and nap time and snack time. The world was a really good place, right? And then all of a sudden, at one point, they kind of tightened the screws a little bit, and they said, okay, we're going to introduce our first benchmark of intelligence. They didn't put it that way, but that's what they were doing. They said, we're going to learn how to read. And all of a sudden, for those of us with dyslexia, our world changed overnight. We realized, looking at our peers, that what everyone else was doing effortlessly, we had an incredible time trying to do. And we actually not only failed on day 1, but we failed on day 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. And the years started to compound where we were exposed to this level of failure that became so commonplace that we started to wear this shroud of shame. There's a psychologist named Dr. Gershon Kaufman. Dr. Kaufman studies shame. Dr. Kaufman says that people who cannot read or who have difficulty learning how to read feel the same level of shame as people who've engaged in incest. Yeah. So you can imagine what it's like. Again, you see that yourself, many, many years ago, and you realize that after a while, you're burdened with this shame, and then all of a sudden you get this reinforcement, negative, albeit, where you're walking down the hall and you hear things like, that guy Dean, kid's so dumb he can't even read, right? Or you get the best one is the teacher-parent conference, where they're like, Dean's a smart kid, but if he just tried harder, I think he's a little bit lazy, okay? And so what happens is that you formulate this malignant self-esteem. You start to believe, no matter how strong your personal resolve may be, you start to believe what everyone is telling you. So it should come as no surprise, right? You transition into middle school and you're looking at high school and you're thinking, okay, who am I going to be, right? We all remember that. That was a horrible experience, right? Trying to define who we were going to be in our cult, in our pack, in our community, right? And we knew instantly that we were not going to be the smart kid. I mean, albeit the wrong assessment, but we knew that we weren't going to be the smart kid, and maybe we were the gifted jock. But chances are we looked at the kids after school smoking reefer on the bleachers, right? Or the kids throwing, rocks through glass, or, somebody maybe even getting involved in a little bit of gang involvement. And we think to ourselves, well, they've got a very, very low barrier to entry, right? I can be that guy. That's very easy, right? And so we naturally gravitate towards those identities. And, statistically, it's a very sad story. 35% of all dyslexics drop out of high school. And 50% of all adolescents involved in drug and alcohol rehabilitation have dyslexia. Another whammy is 60%. In fact, the people in the professionals say it's more like 70%, but I think that's outlandish. The people that work in the juvenile detention system say that 70% of all juvenile delinquents have dyslexia. So that is a very strong and depressing narrative, obviously. But we all have heard, right? I've heard an earlier speaker talk about Einstein, right? We have all heard how Einstein is dyslexic, right? JFK, Pablo Picasso, Leonardo da Vinci, Richard Branson, Charles Schwab. I mean, the laundry list is endless, right? In fact, dyslexics, when they are fully empowered and they recognize that innate intelligence, represent 35% of all entrepreneurs. They represent 40% of all self-made millionaires. And those rocket scientists down at NASA? 1 out of 2 of them is dyslexic. My favorite, because I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is this, easy to get into school called MIT. They call dyslexia the MIT disease, right? So I have kind of toiled with this notion of why it is that, my people, right, suffer these huge delta in outcomes.